Hey there everyone, this is Jeffrey with Killaskila Gaming and welcome back to Little Nightmares 2. Previously, we faced off against the Thin Man in the Pale City, who had originally escaped from the TV due to us letting him out. Then he took 6 captive, and so we are at the signal tower right now. We took him out, we pulled ourselves close to the signal tower using our newfound powers, and we are about to head in and look for 6, so let's get to it. We've got some coffee here. I usually don't drink coffee at this point in the day, but it's almost 8 o'clock for reference. This is the hallway from our dream and our TV sequences. So cool. This can be a little bit confusing. If you recall how we first met 6 in this story as Mono, it gives you a clue as to how to find her. You remember how we found her? At the taxidermy house. On the floor. Playing a music box. Follow the music. Do I take a wrong turn? Or do we have no other option here? No, I think I did that right. So we're scaling the tower. Time and space seem a bit out of whack here, don't they? Cool, you can see the shadow of my head on the right bottom set from where I'm standing on the top left. Okay, that was the right thing, it just wasn't moving. Yeah, I think it's this one. Yep. Ooh. Spatial awareness. Okay, where are we going? Go back. Push this first, then we'll go through. one. Okay. Let's hear the things. There we go. Last one. Pictures on the wall. The central one. Remember I brought up the idea, the concept that Six and the lady were the same person. That's the same image that was on the maw. She was sitting on top of a sledge. She's not gonna like this. Okay. She can be a little bit tricky to deal with. Distract her, whack the thing, but she does get a little trickier than that. Where's this one take us? I've watched people die to those so many times. They can be rather tricky. I think there's a third one, and I think it's the worst, so. Yeah, This one's a little tricky if I recall. The problem is... yeah. Oh! 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 Oh. Sorry. I forgot you had to do that again. The walls. Let's go. Oh. Oh boy. Holy. Oh, I was not looking at myself, I was looking at her. Door's all bent. That's really cool. Up. Oh my. Come on. Mono, get up. It's about the time. This is the crap we could see when we were inside the television the first time, when it showed us zipping around. It was like this and eyes. Whatever this is. Kinda looks like, I I don't know, cancerous tissue in a way. In a way. So no, the game did not just put us into a loop. I came back here from the main menu, and I'm probably going to put a jump cut in there, which is why I'm saying this. So we are back in Chapter 1, The Wilderness. After completing the game, you get access to our final hat. How do I look? If you recall early on, there was a trophy for completing the first section of this chapter without getting caught in the bear traps, supposedly. I'm pretty sure that extends to just dying in general. So we are going to replay this first section until I get it right. Let's get to it. Remember, the thing that got me was the log. I didn't get hit by anything else. Plus we get to wear the new hat, right? Which, if you can't tell, is the Thin Man's hat. Okay. So I don't think there's any bear traps here. I think I'd remember we literally just played this yesterday, right? Well, I did. I guess for y'all watching, I guess it doesn't matter. I don't know how far we're gonna have to play, but I'm assuming it would unlock at the first time we go indoors. It's been so long since I originally did the trophies for this that I just can't remember. So what was your favorite hat? Let me know in the comments if y'all make it this far. I personally really like the Coonskin cap. It was like the first thing you pick up as far as... Oh, gotta run. First thing you pick up as far as the... You know, the main story goes. Alright. So get over that hurdle. I kind of like the Nome hat as well, but we never wore. I figure with that being DLC, you know, not everybody's going to have it anyway. So I just wore the ones for the main story. Okay, this one we need to actually go down. Without dying, I'm assuming would probably help. Back where our first secret was, off to the right. Or is it off to the right or to the bottom? I think it's off to the right. I think I said that the first time too. Funny how those things carry over. You just don't remember. I guess because in the end they don't really matter that much, right? I'll go with the same shoe. I liked this one. Yeah, I see you. Do I not? I forgot. Isn't there a stick? Stick must... No, stick's later, because the stick's the one we gotta use to get past the, what do you call it? The trap that's at the log. Yeah, right there. And of course the stick breaks because bear traps are strong. If you've seen A Quiet Place Part 2, I think it gives a pretty good depiction of what it's like. This part is... wrong way. I remember this one right at the beginning there. I think we're okay. This part can be a little tricky. Of course, we can jump off the end. What? Up, don't fall. Uh-oh. I might be redoing this. Oh, can I get back up there? I probably have to just get a good running start. Leave it to me to do that, right? Crap. Well, I didn't die. Okay. Even the title of the Platinum Trophy suggests that consumerism in that sense, right? Escapism, I mean. So, yeah, that's it. We will reconvene on the title screen. I will see you there. Okay, so that was the end of Little Nightmares 2, and I have quite a few discussion points laid out here that I wanted to go over, so let's dive into these. I'm going to be reading off my notes here, so I probably won't be looking at the camera as much as I want to. First thing, let's skip over the usual discussion points where we go over characters and whatnot, because we don't really have anything new there to discuss, and let's go right into Six's betrayal and Mano's fate in this case. So there was a whole lot thrown at us in that chapter, and as you go like towards the end there, the epilogue of course was that scene where Six comes out of the TV. I don't think that's shown if you don't get all the glitched remains. So the big question then is, why did Six betray Mano? And let's first consider Mano and Six as characters. So I got notes on both. So first, Mano and the Thin Man. Six dropped Mano inside the signal tower where he was trapped and eventually grew into what we know as the Thin Man, which begs a few questions right there. Are Mano and the Thin Man the same person? Did Mano become the new Thin Man to replace him? You know, we really don't know. There was an interview quote that I kept here. The ending heavily suggests that Mano is always destined to become the Thin Man, and this is an endless cycle, because cycles are a common theme in this. In other words, the two are one and the same. With that said, some fans also believe Mano is a successor to the Thin Man. It's a role that's passed down, and they are actually two different people. Which is it? And the developers just said it's all of that. I don't think they want to come clean. I think they're using people to get information. So, which essentially, I would say, can infer that Mano and the Thin Man are essentially the same person, where Mano represents the child that surpasses the Thin Man as the adults and takes his place in the signal tower, which is just doomed to repeat the cycle. So you could kind of look at it both ways. Either way, it's a cycle. It's going to end up the same no matter what. So let's reconsider Mono's description, which I laid out at the very beginning of the game, and I think in the previous chapter as well. His thin paper mask offers some respite, helping him forget that the world outside hates him and wants him to fail, but he can't stay hidden forever. So obviously he can't stay hidden forever if he is to continue the cycle, so that part makes sense, where he would become the Thin Man. But why does the world outside hate him and want him to fail? I brought that question up in the past. And so if you review earlier scenes, such as where the hunter shoots at Mono and never targets Six, or how the doctor goes right past Six and into the incinerator where Mono is, you might think that's scripted, because for obvious reasons we are the protagonist in the story, right? But maybe the reason is that they don't target Six because they recognize us. They know who we are. They know that we're Mono, that we're going to become the Thin Man, and they somehow know what we are in that sense. So that's one concept that I was kind of considering. That's been pointed out in story discussions. Again, I will have links in the description to check out as to where I get some of that information. And there's only like little bits that are really my own thoughts. A lot of this is stuff that you can just find looking anywhere. And another concept to bring up then is the hate aspect of this. So the world outside hates him because they know that if he succeeds, he will become the Thin Man and perpetuate the cycle, going back to why he wears a mask to disguise himself. So if you go to, if you kind of go back to the chapter we were just looking at, the wilderness, it has been suggested that the hunter is an independent entity. And I brought that up earlier on since he was far away from the signal tower, but it's still in some way caught up in this loop, because obviously the characters have to play a role in this. And in that sense, it's kind of thought that maybe that's why he's disfigured. Maybe a part of his role is being killed over and over again by Mono and Six, which would explain that in some way if you want to look at it from the cycle perspective. And then maybe there's a similar case with the doctor and being burned in the incinerator over and over again, which is what I would have done if there wasn't a trophy for it, because that's what you can do. And there's actually a nice, interesting little scene in there that maybe I'll replay the chapter to show it. It's not in this playthrough right now, but maybe before I do my editing, I'll show it, where you hit the incinerator switch, because there's kind of an interesting little scene where Six sits down in front of the incinerator and just lets her hands warm up. Like she starts warming up her hands, holding them out to the incinerator like it's a campfire. So kind of interesting. On the flip side, Six. So let's go back to Six's betrayal. Why did Six betray Mono? There are some that think that she's just evil, and I think I brought that concept up, and it would certainly seem that way. And then some also have suggested that maybe she resents Mono for destroying the music box. Maybe she resents us a little bit for that. I never really liked either of those for my own personal thoughts. There are two that caught my attention. Some think that she knew what Mono would become, and there are some that think she didn't want to kill Mono, but that she knew she had to. Like there was no choice in this. Those reasons I would say intrigue me a little bit more, mostly because if you put them together, it kind of sets up a whole new side to the story. I think I pulled this off the original website, but there was a section, I don't remember where it was from. It said, with Six, the girl in a yellow raincoat, as his guide, Mono sets out to discover the dark secrets of the signal tower and save Six from her terrible fate. So, what terrible fate was this referring to? Was it referring to Six being trapped in the signal tower, like just the way the game played out? Or was it referring to Six becoming the successor to the lady? If you recall in Little Nightmares, I said that the primary thought that I have, and I think this game really solidifies it, is that Mono and Six are the lady and are the Thin Man and the lady respectively. So after dropping Mono, Six was returned to the room where she was captured by the Thin Man. If you look at it, it's pretty much the same room, I think, and reunited with Shadow Six, which is something that actually comes up in Little Nightmares, where she looks to an image. If you looked in the bottom corner, and you can go back to the scene and check it out, because I'll have it listed as epilogue. There's a pamphlet for the Ma in that room that you can see. And then after that, and I think I even looked at the camera at the time, because you could hear grumbling noises of her stomach, like she was getting hungry. So she started having the hunger pains at that point. So a common point of debate then prior to the developers kind of kicking their 2 cents in was whether Little Nightmares 2 was a true sequel or a prequel to Little Nightmares. The developers have commented on this at several points in a seemingly misleading way, but here's one kind of excerpt that I pulled from the interviews. We'd love to get this cleared up. Is Little Nightmares 2 a prequel? Because the true ending definitely suggests that's the case, but the internet is tearing itself apart over it. And the developers responded, the internet has a tendency to do that, so let me be controversial and actually answer this question. The story of Little Nightmares 2 does indeed take place before the story of Little Nightmares, so they confirmed this is a prequel. Now consider this. Did the ending of Mono's story in Little Nightmares 2 seem to have similarities to the ending of Six's story in Little Nightmares? There's a revelation that they both have these supernatural abilities. So, Six has this ability to, something happens whenever she eats. We see that happening all the time, and it seems to come after the signal tower. That's when she's getting her hunger. But when she picked up the cloak the first time, the yellow cloak, you could see kind of like the lights flickering and all that. So I'm not sure if it's Six or the coat. The coat does seem to have some significance in the story, but she has the ability after she consumes the lady to essentially tear everybody apart around her that gets too close to her. She essentially sucks the life force out of them. Whereas Mono has this ability to just jump through TVs from location to location. And in reality, we saw him as the Thin Man could phase shift and do all that other crazy stuff. So they each have these supernatural abilities. They each surpass a figure in a position of power. So Six surpasses the lady, Mono surpasses the Thin Man. So there's no reason that we shouldn't ask if Six and the lady are the same person anymore. As far as I'm concerned, I think this kind of confirms that. And Six surpasses her by biting into her, taking over her powers. And maybe, we don't know this because she does actually walk out the door, but maybe her role there is to watch over the Ma and continue the cycle. Kind of the same way that Mono's story does the same thing. So let's return to the signal tower for a second. In her monstrous form, we saw that Six had significantly longer hair, similar color to that of the lady. There was also an image of a younger girl I pointed out when we were in there, with her face kind of scratched out, exactly like the one we found in the ladies' quarters of the Ma. If we can reconsider Six's description, it states that she has already seen more than any normal child ever should, but then Six is not a normal child. That was pointed out on the official website. And Six never demonstrated her powers prior to consuming the lady. However, we know that in Little Nightmares that the lights flicker whenever she feeds, and we observe this here again when she found the raincoat for the first time. So just a reminder that we observe the same flickering as when she consumed the lady, when the runaway kid saw her reflection and she turned him into a gnome. So that's not just isolated to Six, not just isolated to the raincoat. That did happen with the lady as well. So there's that connection there between them. And that's kind of outside, like I said, the raincoat was not there in that case. Now we know that the lady turns the runaway children into gnomes from Secrets of the Ma. So going back to that. So ask yourself, where else have we found gnomes? I pointed this out early on. But recall that Mono found Six in the house in the wilderness, the one where the taxidermied people were. And the attic DLC takes us up into the attic of that house, where we find a single gnome that gives us the gnome hat. It's kind of inferring that Six may have, I don't want to say she did, may have turned another child into that gnome, which would mean that she already had her powers to begin with if that was the case. That or the gnome somehow got off the Ma, but I kind of like the idea that maybe Six already has this ability and just hasn't expressed it yet. Also recall that we connected a few points between Six and the lady in Little Nightmares, such as the lady having a vision of Six coming to the Ma. That's kind of where you see that dream sequence at the beginning. And Six dreaming about, having a vision, and then Six coming, when she comes to the Ma, she starts dreaming about the lady in that sequence. So I think I brought that up at least. Let me look at this, make sure I'm getting this right. I don't remember where the vision came from. I think I may have got that from the comics or some discussion point or something like that. But anyways, there's a lot of people that dispute this, saying that the developers stated that Six and the lady have no relation, and I brought this up in Little Nightmares because that's not the case. That's not actually what they said. I for some reason, people kept pushing that idea. And so what I did is I went and looked for the interview again. That's why I have so many interview quotes in here. And in the interview, it said, is Six related to the lady? And I think I may have read this already in Little Nightmares, but let's read it again. We get this question fairly often, and it seems the majority of people want them to be some sort of mother-daughter combo. I don't know what that says about the general feelings we all have about our mothers, but I can say that I was once trapped on a train for half an hour, and none of the other passengers were my mother. Maybe it's what we expect of drama after a lifetime reading Joseph Campbell, Sophocles, or the person that started the whole tradition, George Lucas. But the reality is that these two characters have been thrown together by forces beyond their control. The child wants to escape and the adult wants to keep the child trapped forever. How people see that as a mother-daughter relationship, I just don't know. And of course they've discounted the mother-daughter thing. So all that tells me personally is that there is no mother-daughter relationship. It doesn't say they aren't related. It says there's no mother-daughter relationship. So I think that we conclude that Six and the lady are actually the same person, the same way that Mono and the Thin Man are the same person in a sense. So also the same person being surpassed. So if you want to look at them as different people stuck in this loop, that's fine too. It kind of works out the same either way because it's a cycle. It has to repeat itself. So Six surpasses the lady, Mono surpasses the Thin Man, and they take on the role of successor. In the case of Mono, he's trapped in the signal tower, and presumably Six is supposed to go on to repeat the same cycle in the Maw. She'll likely take her place as the head. Okay, keeping that in mind, let's go back to the idea that Six knew what Mono would become, so I suggested that might be one of the possible ways to explain this, and that she didn't want to kill him, but she knew she had to. If you go back to the scene where Six was holding Mono, the part where she was holding him before the gate, she holds him there for a while, like she's going to help him up, but like she's hesitating and not wanting to. So she holds on for a while before she lets go, and it's been pointed out that it's almost as if she was really, really hesitating, like she didn't want to do it, but in the end she knew she had to and just went along with it. So, assuming that Six knew Mono would become the Thin Man, using that as the idea and continue the cycle, then she would have felt as though she needed to drop him to sustain herself, maybe, if she's playing this more on the side of becoming the lady. And then the signal tower has been pacifying the viewers, so I brought this up in the previous chapter, who would eventually go on to become the guests on the Maw, right? That's the kind of running concept of what's going on there. So the signal tower pacifies the viewers, gets them to kind of sit around and get fat. They go to the Maw where they start feeding and sleeping and eventually dying. Probably, going back and forth, maybe, not really sure. We don't know how this cycle quite works to that extent. And if Six is going to become the lady, then she would eventually need to feed on those guests. So she needs this cycle to continue. And now her hunger is starting to show at this point. So maybe that's kind of what this is going for. She's trying to perpetuate the cycle because she knows she needs it eventually. What would happen to the transmission in this case, and her by association, if there was no Thin Man? Would the signal tower exist? So a couple of the concepts I wanted to bring up. First, there's one more aspect of the story that I wanted to kind of mention. It makes more knowing what we do now. All the characters in Little Nightmares, from the janitor that we first crossed to the doctor, as far as these larger characters, seem to conform to what some call the eye. If you've noticed, like when you do the brightness settings, there's an eye figure. If you go to different places, there's eye drawings. The door in the sequence where Mono's trying to get to it has an eye on it, and there were eyes all over the Maw in lieu of cameras to some extent. So anytime that the signal tower was disrupted by Mono hitting the music box, or when he first transported between TVs, we could see mounds of flesh that I was saying looked kind of like cancerous growths. And what was in that flesh? Eyes. So there are thoughts that the eye is creating this time loop where these characters are trapped, and that the eye interferes indirectly through the broadcast to drive obsessions such as hunger in the Maw and escapism with the TVs kind of contributing to this process. And a common point of these stories is that the children themselves are the little nightmares, hence the name Little Nightmares. And perhaps that is because they do not conform to the eye. They're children. Children tend to not conform as much, right? There are also thoughts that the eye created Mono to keep the loop going. And I would assume Six and the other children as well, which would make the little nightmares the adults rather than to the eye itself. I thought that the children may have been created by the eye based on the concept that Mono was, but the reality is that Mono has been suggested as the creation because he's the only one that can truly seem to resist the transmission. So he was pulled to the TV, but he's not like the others in that sense. So the idea of being able to resist the transmission from the signal tower brings me back to the Thin Man. I noted the idea earlier that the Thin Man may not have been targeting Mono because he does go directly for Six in that room when he's coming after them, and then later on it doesn't seem like he's being aggressive when he's coming after us. He's just kind of reaching out like he may need something from us. And maybe what was going on is the Thin Man in that case was just trying to break the cycle because he knew it was going to happen, and he was trying to get through to himself but wasn't able to pull it off. So we fought back not knowing this and inadvertently destroyed ourselves and surpassed our position to become the next Thin Man. Bringing us to kind of a final note. The cycle and sequel versus prequel. So if you go back to the idea of Little Nightmares 2 being a prequel, there's a point of argument that you could identify it as both, since the story is a cycle, so it doesn't really matter. It has to happen either way, right? Cycle's a cycle. Doesn't matter where we started. We gotta end at the same location to get back to where we were. Now, diving into the world of Little Nightmares is beautiful if you take it from the perspective of children and how they interpret the world, which is kind of a fun way to look at this. But there is a darker thought that Little Nightmares can also be viewed as seeing the world through the eyes of children with fewer limits and more imagination. One thought that really stuck to me when I first heard it was how the children don't see their teachers or doctors as real people who have their own lives. They may see them as antagonists with one role to fill, hence the obsessiveness in the kind of adult characters in this. And that really stood out to me as a because I taught for many years, and I remember having similar thoughts about my own teachers when I was a student. You see them out in public, you see them wearing regular, normal clothes, and it's like, okay, they're a person, right? But when the younger you are, the harder it is to kind of picture that stuff. So there's thought that the antagonists are all living in nightmares of their own making as well, based on the dark scenarios we tend to find them in. And lastly, you have the children that see the boring and mundane life of adults or antagonists in the story, and how we always say things when we are children, such as how we will never grow up or grow out of things that we enjoy, and how we will stay young forever, even though things don't really work out that way, and we end up becoming, in some cases, just becoming our parents, right? Continuing that cycle. I remember made me think of this one time where I was talking to my dad about something, and he just said I was a chip off the old block, and I was like, yeah, I'm becoming my parents, definitely. So I can really relate to that. I think that's kind of an interesting take on the story. So sorry if you stuck around through all this. Those are my thoughts, and my thoughts based on, like I said, what's linked in the description. I think that's all I had to share on this story. This is probably going to be a little bit of a longer running video than it originally could have been because of how many notes I actually had taken down on this. Like I said, if you see me reading, I literally wrote all this stuff down. So I'd be happy to share it if anybody is interested in reading it themselves. But that is the end of this binge journey of Little Nightmares that I've been on, and I'm really excited. It is 9:05 p.m. on Thursday. Tomorrow, well, actually at midnight tonight, Little Nightmares 3 releases, and I already have it installed and ready to go, so I'm really looking forward to jumping in, and I hope you will all join me for that as well. So, thank you all for joining, and I will see you all later.